No one tells you how lonely leadership is, how you're the one with the late nights, the telephone calls, the text messages, the worry, the stress, the anxiety. No one explains to you all of those things, the pressure that you feel and the loneliness that you'll feel as a leader. But today we're going to talk about that on the Leadership We Need Now, a space where we talk about kind, caring, and courageous leadership. I'm Stacey Dye, and I've been a nonprofit director, an executive coach, and strategist for over 20 years. And please, as we're looking at this, we're trying to build our community, and we need you as a part of that community to subscribe, to like, to follow us, to visit our website, to engage with what we're trying to do, because we know this work is hard and that leadership is lonely, and it is something that we're all trying to do better and we're all trying to grow through. So, as we talk about loneliness in leadership, I think it's important to recognize that all of your feelings are valid. All of the things that you're experiencing are A, true to you, but then B, they are real. They are real. And when you're doing the work that you're doing, when you're leading a company, when you're leading a nonprofit or an organization, or even if you're an entrepreneur who's working on their own and started their own company. These are really difficult times. And the loneliness, I think when we use the word loneliness, it feels like you're just based on emotion. But this is also something that if you're used to working in a team, if you're used to working in an office, if you're used to working with other people, this is a huge transition to leadership where you are a decision maker and you are kind of at the top of the food chain. You now need to think about not just what your coworkers think or what your boss thinks, but now you're thinking about what a board thinks or what your investors think or what the bank thinks or what your employees think or what your significant other thinks or partners think or other businesses think about you. And so you have, I think about this in such a way, simply because I've worked with so many leaders, I've done so much coaching, and this is why coaching is a profession, because it gives you the opportunity to be vulnerable, to share, to talk about yourself, from your perspective with someone who also has had that lived experience, who maybe isn't going through exactly what you went through or isn't doing exactly what you are doing now, but can look at it and think, wow, that's really hard when you have to hire somebody. That's really hard when the money doesn't come in when you think it will, or when you are trying to make sure you keep employees working and you have to make hard decisions, or you have a board that's really difficult to work with. All of those things kind of add and apply pressure to a leader in a different way. And as an employee, you don't realize those things. You don't see all those things. You don't see that perspective. But as a leader, you really, it is an emotional change too, because there have been times where you can be a peer, you can have coworkers, and it's a different type of relationship. And if you move up within the same company, that's even more difficult sometimes, because you have to change your relationships with everyone. You now become the boss, you become the person who has to discern things, who has to criticize or evaluate, the person who, is kind of like the mom of the group. And so that changes your friendships and relationships. So it has this, tangible side, this logistical side at work, but then it also has this emotional side where it affects you as a human being. And so as we think about leadership, it's important to a um recognize that all these things are true and real, but also to step back and do some tangible things, do some logistical things that when the loneliness, when the separation, when the feelings of pressure and overwhelm come in, that you're able to, again, find your sea legs, get grounded, and do some logistical things that will help you move forward. And some of those things for me have looked like stepping back and finding community. Now, here is where I think it was really beneficial is I found multiple communities. So I found local communities, people in my area, people in my region, people in my state who had shared views, shared ideas, shared programs, shared values, things that we were working on. So that looked like associations, that looked like community organizing kind of things. That was really important, especially when we were trying to do advocacy work or we were trying to work on things that were really complex. We could look at each other and know that we were in a similar situation. Then I also found communities outside of my area, people that didn't see me day to day, people that I didn't know, people that I knew were experiencing this from other states, other places, other fields. And what that did was that gave me the opportunity to be vulnerable. That gave me the opportunity to talk about things that were difficult to talk about. Um, and I'll use the experience for me as a nonprofit leader. We let's talk about funding. Funding's always something we talk about. If you're a nonprofit leader and you have an abundance of funding at a certain time for certain programs or certain projects, that then changes your dynamic with others. It is much more difficult to find partnerships in the same way to help you. They will do stuff, but they will want compensation. It'll change the relationship. It just changes things. Money changes things. Um, and that piece about being vulnerable, about being able to share, was really important because more money does cause more problems. It is just different types of problems. Money gives you opportunities. Money gives you the chance to experience things different. It doesn't make all the problems go away. It just changes them. And so if you go into a group, a community group, and you're talking about, oh my gosh, I have to spend all this money by the end of the year and I don't know what to spend it on. And you have other organizations sitting there and they don't have enough money to make it through the end of the year. That makes the relationships complicated. That makes the feelings, the emotions of the work together that you both enjoy and the partnerships that you've enjoyed stressed and strained. And again, listen, I've been on both sides of that. I've, had both experiences. Um, and it is, it's, rich girl problems or, those kind of things. Poor little rich girl. But it is a problem because with a lot of these grants, you have to expend a large amount of money in short period of time sometimes. And it doesn't make sense. It's not something you feel comfortable doing. You have to make decisions about things that if you had another 3 months, you would probably do different. And so it doesn't negate the problem. It just says that audience is probably not someone that can help you through that situation, that makes you feel more isolated, not less. And so in those community groups, that you have to be a certain person in that group. In outside groups, you can be more yourself. You don't have anybody that has a relationship. It's not somebody, if you don't like someone that you don't like to work with, it's not someone's sister or somebody that they went to high school with or whatever happens in small towns. It's somebody no one knows. It's a faceless, nameless group. You can be honest. You can be transparent about things. You can be authentic. And those types of groups, when I think about those times when I went to conferences that were so far out of my area and we sat around and I talked about real problems that I was having, I was able to get better support and more in tune with maybe the problems that weren't similar to everyone else's. Right. So, if I'm in my association and we all do the same thing, we can have a shared idea. I can be that person for them. I felt like when I went and built a different community, when I was a part of a different community, I could be myself. I could be authentic. I could really get to the root of problems. I could talk about things that were really affecting me and have that feedback be very clear, very like not emotional. And I also wasn't worried about someone sharing that or someone, that getting back to someone or causing problems in the relationship. And so what tends to happen when we feel lonely is we want to connect. We want to find what we're missing. And so I think that that can happen in a lot of ways. I think the first way is finding, yes, a local community of people doing what you're doing. Um, but knowing that you have to show up in a certain way for that. You have to be on, you have to be polished, you have to be ready for whatever that group is. Other places, whether that's online communities, whether that's groups like this, where you can get information and feel vulnerable and ask questions and not feel like there's judgment, you need that as well. I think also when you're doing this, whether that's someone, if you're working, you're running your own business, or you're starting your own business, and you are feeling this loneliness, the desire to hire or bring in someone else can make you feel like you have to make sporadic decisions, or like that you just need someone to share in what you're experiencing. That's a difficult one, because sometimes that may work out perfectly well. And sometimes that may be a bad hire. It may not be the right fit. It may not be the right moment. But I think before you make that decision, understanding why you want to make it. Is it because you're lonely? Is it because you need someone to bounce ideas off of? Because if it is, maybe the answer is a coach. Maybe it's paying someone to listen to you, to give you advice, to hear what you're saying, to talk ideas out, to think about things in a different way. Maybe it is hiring somebody, but maybe you were thinking that, hey, while I need this, maybe this person can also do this, this, and this. Being clear about what you need that person for is really important. I think even as you're, again, this desire, it's almost like dating, you don't want to just find a shitty boyfriend just because you're lonely on a Friday night. Maybe you need another cat. Maybe you need to go, with your friends. Maybe you need a girls trip. Maybe you need to volunteer, whatever. But I think it's the same way with hiring. I mean, you don't have to get a cat if you're hiring, but if you are lonely and you're looking for connection to what you're doing, it is perfectly okay to find someone to do that. Whether that's a contract and having someone do it like a coach, or B, part of the hiring process is you really need someone to be as part of your think tank. You need someone to bounce ideas off of you. And then understanding that for yourself, making sure before you hire that person, you have a list of things um, that you can do, that you are looking for. So for me, I love ideas. I'm a bouncer. So I like to create an idea. I want somebody to take it, bounce it off of me, but we bounce it back and forth and it builds, right? I don't necessarily want someone who's just going to take what I say and do it. I like the back and forth of building something. So if that's what I'm looking for, that's the type of person I need to hire. If I'm looking for someone because I have clarity, this has also been a time in my life where I have clarity about what I want to do. I just don't know how to get there. It is really important for me to be clear in saying, I know that I'm doing this by myself, but I know what I'm doing with this, but I do need your support in this way, this way, this way. I want you to be a fan of this idea, and I want you to be able to help me get there. Those are two different things. Those are two different relationships. Those are two different partnerships, whether that's you hiring a contractor to do those things for and with you, or if that's hiring an employee. So as you're thinking about this, the loneliness factor can change the evolution of your business, because if you hire somebody too quickly, because you do feel alone in this process, or you do feel insecure about how you're making decisions, you can hire somebody and then have to carry the burden of someone else's expenses. And even if you have, which I do, the most loving partner, family, loved ones, an only child. So like parents who love everything I do, even if you have all that, it doesn't fill the void of professional feedback, professional input, professional energy and synergy that you get when you're building something. And so making sure that you can segment or separate that and fill that need, whether that's someone in the community, whether that's someone outside of your community, an online platform, something like this, a coach, whether that is hiring somebody, whether that's bringing in partners, um, looking at it in a way where before you do any of those things, you're trying to understand the void you're filling. So even because it is real, the loneliness is real. And it just even for myself, managing staff, having tons of staff and people that I could talk about the work with, it was still lonely in leadership. It was still me having to make decisions that could hurt people or that could help people or decide one way or another what happens in someone else's life, to working on my own where I am, with part-time support and help and consultants trying to navigate the emotions behind all of these things. So there always are logistical things, like I said, making the list of what communities you could join, finding places to connect, finding people to connect with, partnerships, relationships to connect with. But coming back to the idea, when you are still sitting at your desk, you are alone in that. That is not going to change no matter how many employees you have, how many contracts you have, partners you have, whatever. That is still going to stay the same. So in that, you still have to feel grounded. You still have to know that the decisions you're making are from a place of rational decision making, data, information, gut instinct, but also acknowledging that these things are real is, I think, the biggest part. Is like sometimes it's just like, I'm lonely. Don't push to try to fill that void with something else that may not be the right answer. If you know you're lonely, which we all are and are going to be, it is okay to be like, I'm lonely. This is a rough time for me. I know that I need to schedule more lunch dates. I know that I need to schedule more time to focus on this. I know I need to have more coaching. I know for me personally, coaching fills that void a lot of times because I am talking to someone, I'm trying to help them, I'm solving their problems sometimes, I'm helping with their healing or what they're going through or their struggles. And that is a connection to me that I don't really ever lose. So, if I've worked with somebody 5 years ago, they still call me and say, "Hey, I'm going through this. What do you think?" And I love that. I don't, I think that's part of it, is that finding the things that even in your loneliness, you can find good connection. Acknowledge the loneliness, but find that connection. I think it's so important. So whether that's community around you, friendships, relationships, partnerships, professional and personal, then also finding outside communities where you can be vulnerable, you can be honest, you can be authentic. That is going to be a game changer for you. And then being able to take that and get that through some of your harder times, and then as you're making decisions, acknowledging whether this is just loneliness, just a feeling, just the emotions, or is this something where I need to fill this, and not just filling a void, but filling a position, filling an opportunity, filling a partnership. And so as you're thinking about all these things, please like, share, subscribe, share our stuff, because that's what keeps this work going. And I appreciate all of you, and stay strong in the work that you're doing.